Hi, Orod.
Hi, Soma. How are you?
I'm going well. How are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. Today it's a very nice day in Melbourne. How's the weather in Sydney?
It's sunny. It's good. It's sunny, but I also have just watched the news that bushfire alert in Victoria. What's happening? Is everything okay?
I don't know. I've never heard anything, but we always have bushfire during spring and summer. So I
Well,
won't. Yeah, I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. But hopefully, people just make sure that they look after the environment and don't. I don't know. Don't make fires when it's too hot.
that's
And
true.
it's a public holiday in Sydney
And it's
today.
double.
Yeah,
Yes, yes, it is. And we are still working. Isn't that a good dedication towards our listeners, our audience?
absolutely. So it's not a public holiday in Victoria,
Mhm.
but
Well,
it was public holiday
on
on
Friday.
Friday. Yes, grand
Yes,
final.
yes, totally.
All
Well,
right,
uh,
good. Should we start?
yes, let's start.
Anything, anything you heard recently about
I
Kanban
did.
that's, yeah,
Yes,
nice.
let's talk about this. So I did hear that, like some people think that if you are practicing Kanban, you can increase the throughput, the utilization of the team. What do you
Mhm.
think about that? But let's start with whether it's a myth or a fact.
So Kanban increases people utilization. I
Yes.
think that's a myth for sure. Um, and I like to talk a little bit about one of the most well-known Kanban practices, which is limiting the work in progress.
Yeah.
So as you know, we limit the number of work in progress for a reason, and that's
Hmm.
because we want to make sure that people focus on the work that they already started before start something else.
Yes,
So
that's
I
true.
think David Anderson said, stop starting and start finishing.
Hmm.
By adding this WIP limit, you basically stop people to context switch. So it helps them to focus on the work that they started, get it out
Hmm.
of the way, and then start a new work. And interestingly, most people complain about this WIP limit because it's very common that developer, for example, reach their WIP limit and they want to start something else. And WIP limit says that you already have a lot because either you blocked or you're waiting for someone else to review your code and stuff like that. And they don't
Hmm.
want that. Um, so I personally had different experience with WIP limit.
Hmm.
To me, WIP limit not only increase teams and people or individual utilization,
Yeah.
but give them some free time because
Hmm.
you reach the limit, you're not supposed to start something else, but you have some capacity.
Hmm.
And then the question is, all right, how you can utilize this time to improve the system, right? If we want to make sure everyone 100% utilize and start coding or testing or the day-to-day job, they
Hmm.
don't have time to think about what they can do to improve the system. Maybe
Exactly.
you can use this time to write some unit tests, write
Hmm.
some test automation, or help the BA or start doing some sort of investigation and these kind of thing rather than just code. Does that make sense?
Mm. Well, yeah, that's true. And it is not only applicable for developers, I think it's applicable for everyone.
Yeah.
When we are too busy, we often miss to see that where can we do things differently in order to optimize the system or make it better. So that is totally true. And also the context switching that you mentioned earlier is so true because I believe in almost all the organization, everyone is trying to 100% utilize the people
Mm-hmm.
because We are still in that era where we are referring people as resources, but people who can actually do knowledge work, they are so much more than just resources. So this is another thing I believe that Kanban tries to focus on, where it's not only about 100% utilizing someone, it's about getting the full value. And sometimes knowledge work is not about, the hours you put in. It's so much more than that. So for example, like we often have seen, especially, like if you have been a Scrum Master, which you have, I know, same for me, where we were like Scrum Mastering a team, two teams, we would see that, okay, after the sprint planning, people would just drag all the things they are doing in their in progress. So at the same time, they are trying to focus on more than 2 to 3 things, because in their mind, it's like, how many things I can start, I will finish it, as soon as possible. That's the biggest myth I have ever seen. So multitasking is a myth. I know that we all claim that we can multitask, but I cannot at all. So if I'm focusing on one thing, that's where my 100% focus is. And also, it's not about the context switching only. It's also about getting in the state of flow, Zen. Like when you are focusing on something, you reach a state where you know automatically what needs to happen, the next steps. And that's the most beautiful and the powerful step. And when you are context switching, when you are trying to just utilize the capacity, you miss on that. Sometimes you just have to just cut corners because you're trying to deliver something out of your way. Instead of thinking of the most, like amazing creative solution, you would be like, okay, this is the least we can do to get by. Let's just do that. So when we try to just reach that, we are actually getting so much less than what we can. So I believe that, in order to utilize people through Kanban, that's a myth, but also this is hampering more than we can even think of.
All right. So if Kanban doesn't increase people utilization, and we use WIP limit to, in fact, or limit the number of work and give them some free time to optimize the system and help other people or learn anything new, is there anything else that Kanban tries to do to not just utilize the people, but help the system to improve?
Yeah, that's the best benefit, right, that Kanban can give you, because you are trying to smoothen the flow of the work in your system. So your focus is customer here. You are trying to deliver the best service you can to your customer at the earliest possible. So when you are doing that, it's about, like the flow, state of flow, the practice flow. And you are leveraging many other general practices as well, like you are leveraging the visualization. You're trying to find out that where are the bottlenecks in the system? What's actually delaying us to deliver our best to our customer? So you are limiting WIP. You are trying to find out that, okay, let's focus on few things instead of like many things, and let's just deliver those at the best we can. So when you are doing that, I would say it's more like a side effect, that you are getting the best of people, coming together with creative solution. So that's not the main focus. The main focus are different in Kanban. What do you think?
No, absolutely. So you mentioned that people needs time to focus to finish the works, as soon as possible with the quality that customer expected. And also you mentioned that in Kanban, we always look at our customer and make sure to deliver something valuable to the customer. And we use WIP limit and visualization. Another thing I like to a little bit talk about it and hopefully clarify, because it doesn't matter how much we say that don't keep people utilized 100%, still management, they want to make sure that everyone busy and utilized all the time, because they use cost accounting, they have timesheet, and they pay people by hour. So they want, if they pay me, I don't know, 8 hours a day, they want me to fill the timesheet for 8 hours, right? I like to talk a little bit about when management resists and say, okay, this WIP limit, yes, I understand it reached, you reach the WIP limit, but I still want this person to code. I don't want him to do anything else. So what do you think we can do, or what Kanban can offer to get back to these people, managers, and say, we utilize these people, but still nothing done as customer point of view? Is there anything, you can think of that Kanban offer?
So one of the experiments that really happened in one of the places that I was working is that by limiting WIP, you are delivering more than you thought. So I would give you the scenario now. Just imagine, like the team had like 12 people, and each one of them had like more than 5 things in progress. So it would be like, 50 to 55 items in progress.
Yep.
And it would always miss the scrum, like the sprint deadline. So they couldn't finish it, of course. Like when you are trying to do so many things at once, it becomes really sometimes unmanageable. And we just had an experiment where I was like, okay, let's try to focus on 2 things. I'm not asking you to focus on one thing at a time. I know it would be too much, because not only management, I believe even the team members would resist when you are trying to ask them to like implement or embed WIP limit in their team. Because the first thing is that, how is it even possible? You are asking me to work less. What do I tell my manager? So when they did that, and I asked them, like, let's try it only for a month and see that how many things can you deliver. So by doing that, they could actually deliver more than what they did before. And the only thing that changed was that the focus. So we often forget this, like when we have things in progress, even though we are not actively looking at that, our mind is actually always stressing about the things. And this is human psychology, right? Like we know that we have to get it to that, but we cannot do it now. So we cannot focus on the things at hand, but also we are trying to divide our attention on the things that's like on our backlog, like in progress. So this is a very simple technique, and have a goal. Like if your WIP limit at the moment is like, say, 6 or 7, try to just half it and see what's the result you get. So that's one thing that people can always try. And in that, I don't think that we have to even go back to the management, because nothing is changing. The SLAs are not changing of when they need to be delivered. It's just a small experiment that people can do within their team to see that, okay, what's the time of the delivery if that happens.
Yeah, good. So one of the Kanban metric is lead time. Probably the key metrics in Kanban is lead time. So I'd like to very quickly talk about flow efficiency and how we can use flow efficiency to have some data to get back to the team or management and have something to support what we're talking about, right? Because it doesn't matter what we say, we need to have something to show the people, right?
Yes.
And we need to have some fact. And flow efficiency, it's a really good one. So when you look at the lead time, which is from start until end, normally there are 2 types of time spent on the lead time. One, it's called process time or active time or value adding time. This is the time that someone actively work on the job. So for example, a developer coding or tester is testing or someone is deploying or whatever, actually actively working on the piece of work. But there is another type of time spent on the lead time. It's called waiting time or non-value adding time, which is the time that work is ready for someone else to start working on that. So for example, developer finished the work and then he's waiting for someone else to deploy the code, right? And normally when we look at the lead time, easily around 40% based on my experience is just waiting time. In lots of scenario and cases, this waiting time, it's even much more than that. And I remember I've read somewhere that in Kanban community, something around 10% flow efficiency it's quite common, which means 90% is wait. Fortunately, I never experiment something like that. Based on my experience, around 40% is waste, and the flow efficiency is 60%. So just to give a very simple example, you know, may hopefully make sense to people. If you look at your lead time, which is what customers see. So for example, customers say, I raised the request and I received, or my problem solved within 20 days. So I was waiting for this spot for 20 days. And this is the lead time. When you talk to developers say, I spent 3 days coding. Tester, 1 day testing, right? So this 4 days is our active time. And what happened? So why it took 20 days? This 16 days here was the waiting time. Developer finish, 2 days waiting for someone to review the code. 5 days until someone to deploy the code. Maybe a week until it deployed to production and customer actually impacted and saw that the problem actually resolved. Yeah. So by focusing on lead time and flow efficiency, I think you have a fact to go back to management and say, it doesn't matter how busy the Orod or the developer is, or you ask developer to work after hours and keep developers or testers 100% utilized, you have, I don't know, 60%, 50% waste in your system. Yeah. So maybe rather than you push your knowledge work to just pull new work and start coding or testing or, you know, analyzing or whatever, maybe you can train these people to learn how they can start working on automation and CI/CD, you know, this kind of stuff. And I understand because I have software background, so all you know example come from software industry and IT, but that can probably applicable to any type of industry. Yes. Yeah. But this is a really good metric and a good fact that you can use it to support you know, the WIP limit and visualization and all those kind of things to optimize the flow of the work.
And most
rather
of the
than
time,
just utilize people.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
And you know, like what the example that you have given, most of the time people face those delays. Like, for example, let's say peer review, something is stuck there 2 days for peer review because the other person is so busy doing so many things at once that they couldn't pick up this one. And it's a very, like, I would say you have said something really valuable, that customer actually cares about the lead time, how much time they are waiting to get their service back or like the product back. They don't care about the throughput or like how much, you know, the per person is being utilized, because that's not their worry. And this is where I believe that it's Kanban can help you to think or shift your thinking towards more customer centricity. Instead of that, you know, just trying to get, you know, like money for each person kind of thinking. So that's where I think that we all should be going, and this metric, the flow efficiency, can be really helpful. But also remember, if people are busy doing a lot of things, they could never even help each other to, you know, care for the customer. So that's really important to understand.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make a comment on what you said. Management think about customer. What they don't really think is the waste in the system. So they think by asking people to work harder and even stay after hour, they can deliver the work sooner to the customer. But what we try to do by flow efficiency is to show them that there are 50-60% waste in your system, and it doesn't matter if how much you force people to work harder, still nothing leave the system, still nothing deploy to production, and customer won't see the changes. Yeah. All right. So just to summarize, I think today we talk about one of the Kanban myth, and which was Kanban wants to increase people utilization. Yep. And we talk about Kanban, in fact, try to give some slack time or free time to people by adding the WIP limit and visualizing the work and workflow, and of course using lead time and flow efficiency, to encourage businesses and knowledge worker to think what they can do to increase the throughput or outcome and improve the system by reducing the waste.
Yep.
Did I summarize what we talked today?
Yeah.
Soma, is there anything else you want to add?
Yes, and what you said about the software one, I'm just going to say it for all the non-software teams as well. So if you're in a team, if you are always busy, you can never think of improving the process. So let's say you're just like, you know, you're in a team of a marketing campaigns. That's what you do. If you're always delivering marketing campaigns, you can never think of how can you deliver them better, which one is more beneficial to your customer. So you need that time. That's why the WIP limit is really important. Reduce context switching. That's going to help you to gain more at the end.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Soma, and thanks everyone for listening and now watching us. Please make sure to subscribe, and we'll come back next week. Thanks, Soma.
Thanks, Orod. Thank you, everyone.